youngest cabinet minister, he has done yeoman service to the nation, and some of which are the induction of the 108 Ambulance Service, Public Health Foundation of India, Department of Health Research, National Institute of Communicable Diseases, Food Safety and Standards Institute of India, and the Traditional Knowledge Library. Stringent regulations on sale of tobacco products was brought about by him, and also a national tobacco policy was formulated under his leadership. He has been voicing his concerns on health effects of consuming tobacco and alcohol quite vehemently. He was instrumental in setting up aims-like institutes all over India, particularly in Madurai and Salem. He was also instrumental in setting up a vaccine manufacturing park in Chikkalpettu. He is well traveled and has interacted with many, many world leaders. He is an accomplished sportsman, having excelled both in sports and studies, and is currently the president of the Tamil Nadu Badminton Association. Pasumai Tayagam, another of his brainchild, has restored more than 1,000 lakes and planted more than 25 lakh trees. He is with us today to talk on climate and COVID. Over to you, sir, Dr. Anbumani Ramdas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sudesh. And thank you, Sujata. Respected presidents of various Rotary clubs, Rotarian Alankar Varadarajan, Rotarian Arjun Raja, Rotarian Chris Evan Emmanuel, Rotarian David Rainil, Rotarian Ganesh Raj, Rotarian Hemalata Johnson, Rotarian Peter, Rotarian Kayadvili Sampath Kumar, Rotarian Kodangi Suchitra, Rotarian Meghanathan Govindarajan, Rotarian Ravi Shankar Ramanathan, Rotarian Sasikumar, and the president who is conducting today's meeting, Rotarian Jayanti Karthikeyan, and my good friends from the Rotary Club, Rotarians. I wish you all a very good evening, and I'm very happy to be discussing with you a very important topic, in fact, which has been talked by everybody, and in fact, we are going through a lot of crisis, Corona, how it is linked to climate change or climate. And I'd like to thank you all for inviting me to give you some points about how both are linked and how we should tackle it in the coming days. We are going through a crisis, Corona, and one of the biggest crises in our lifetime. The huge pandemic, Corona. The coronavirus is not something which is new to us. We have been having coronaviruses in the last more than 100 years. And this virus has mutated in different forms or different types of diseases in the last few decades. In fact, in the last 17, 18 years, this virus has mutated thrice. That is, in fact, in 2002, it has come as SARS, Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. And in 2012, it has come as MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. And last year, end December 2019, has come as COVID-19, in fact, from China. How Corona or any other diseases are linked to climate change? I'm not just saying Corona issue, because Corona is it's a type of virus. And there are even other viruses, if we don't take action against climate change, could mutate even more virulently in the coming days to come, or maybe in the coming years to come. Corona, today, the world has been affected. In fact, almost all the countries in the world have been affected by coronavirus. Nearly about 4 crore people have been affected. In fact, they've been tested positive. And I don't know how many crores of people who have not been tested and who are positive. We have lost out nearly about 11 lakh people worldwide due to Corona. And in India, nearly about 74 lakh people have been tested positive. And we have lost out more than about 1,14,000 people due to Corona in India. In Tamil Nadu, nearly about 7 lakh people have been tested. In fact, India, 74 lakh people have been tested positive. In Tamil Nadu, about 7 lakh people. And we have lost nearly about 10,000 people due to Corona in Tamil Nadu. But I don't want to scare you into the problems of Corona. I'm sure we're going to get over this. Because in the coming days, I see some good potential vaccines coming out. But then we need to have an awareness about, as a doctor, it's my duty and responsibility to inform you all about how we should prevent the spread of further getting affected by Corona. But the main problem is awareness amongst the general public. And today I go out, I mean, in fact, I hardly go out, but then my friends who have gone out or someone, they say that in the markets or in the public places, people are not wearing a mask and they're just walking around aimlessly, carelessly, that others are affected. Yes, that's true. I'll just give you an example about the importance of mask. Because today the only thing which could prevent Corona is a mask. Frequent hand washing and social distancing. Mask is a very, very important thing to prevent Corona. Because, for example, if there are two persons in a room, one person is affected by Corona and the other is not affected next to each other. If the person affected by Corona sneezes, in fact, both are not wearing any masks. And if the person affected by Corona sneezes, then the person who's not affected has got a 90% chance of getting Corona. The second scenario is both the persons are there, one person is affected, another person not affected. The affected person is wearing a mask and he sneezes, then the person who is not affected getting Corona is only 30%. If there are two persons, both the persons are wearing a mask, and the person having Corona sneezes, then the person not having Corona getting affected by Corona is only 5%. So imagine the importance of wearing a mask, and there's no two ways more than that. An effective vaccine, I see there are a couple of candidates coming out. AstraZeneca, Oxford vaccine, that's one of the most viable vaccine I see coming in the near future. It's going to take about 3 to 6 months, and then it's going to general public to be available to general public is going to be about next April, May, June in India. And then other vaccines, Moderna vaccine, or then Novavax vaccines, American vaccines, and Pfizer, recently Johnson & Johnson, which has been stopped from trial. So all these things, we're looking at good vaccines. And the problem is there's not a good cure for Corona. So we have to move through this phase and then prevent it from being affected. And today, a lot of youngsters have been affected in India because they're very careless and careless attitude of them. They don't know that because of them, the persons in their house, their parents or grandparents or uncle, auntie living with them, they'll be affected indirectly by them. So that responsibility has to be there. Coming back to Corona and climate change. The climate change today is a thing of reality. The World Health Organization has said that the biggest health risk in the 21st century is going to be due to climate change. So when you say that the biggest health risk or the risks due to climate change, but I feel that there's not much awareness on climate change. So what is climate change? Climate change is basically global warming or change of climate in a given period of time. This could be natural or it could be man-made. Pre-industrial temperature of the world, global temperature of the world was 14 degrees centigrade. In fact, for hundreds of thousands of years, the average temperature of Earth was only 14 degrees centigrade. Today, after the industrial revolution and in the Western industrialization of Western countries and all these things, like today, the average global temperature has increased by 1.1 degree. It's come to about 15.1 degrees centigrade. This 1.1 degree centigrade, you can just ask only what is 1 degree is going to do. This 1.1 degree centigrade increase in the last 150 years is creating havoc to our environment, to our climate, to our country. And experts, United Nations has been warning us that if the countries together globally or jointly doesn't take action to reduce this global warming, then we're going to face a lot more problems. So when I say 1.1 degree centigrade rise in temperature, just recent phenomena. In Hyderabad is a recent phenomena just a couple of days before, where you had the highest rainfall for a single day, 24 hours, which poured in Hyderabad was about one day, it was about 29 or 299 millimeters of rainfall in one day. The earlier record was about 220 millimeters, 22 centimeters. And you see, this year has been the warmest year ever recorded in history, worldwide, globally. And this year, see Siberia, where you have the world's amount of permafrost. That's been melting. The Arctic ice has been melting. In fact,
உங்க குரல் நல்லா தான் இருக்கு, ஆனா கொஞ்சம் மியூட் பண்ணிக்கலாமே இப்போ. யார் பேசுறீங்களோ கொஞ்சம் மியூட் பண்ணிக்கங்க ப்ளீஸ். Thank you.
This has been the warmest summer in the Arctic seas and Arctic surrounding areas, and we have the highest amount of ice melting in the Arctic region. So because of this 1.1 degree centigrade, we have seen forest fires in the US, in California, and nearly about 15 states in the US have been having forest fires. Recent forest fires in Australia, recent floods in China, in current floods in Vietnam, then in Mumbai. In fact, last year in Tamil Nadu, a place called Avilanchi near Ooty, the highest rainfall recorded ever in Tamil Nadu for one day. It was about 921 millimeters. Tamil Nadu's average rainfall per year is about 950 millimeters. So he had one whole year's rainfall pouring down in just one day. And these are incidences. So when you collectively see these incidences happening every now and then in a few months time interval, like, so we're going to see a lot of problems, and the United Nations has been warning us that if we don't check this process of global warming, then we're going to have newer diseases, which in fact I have been telling for the last 3 years, like that because of climate change, we're going to have newer diseases to come, and now finally Corona has landed up. And I don't see Corona as a big threat when compared to climate change, because we're going to see more problems. I don't want to scare you, but you need to have some awareness. There's going to be bigger problems than Corona in the future if you don't take action against climate change. And why this global warming is because of increase of greenhouse gases. I mean, I know climate change is a boring subject, because I've been going through a lot of schools and colleges trying to enlighten these children in colleges. And when I ask them, like, how many of you are aware, have awareness on climate change? Out of 2,000 students, about 5 of them will raise their hand and said yes. So this is something where we need to, because you can't see it, but then you're feeling it all around you, and you're going to feel it then, because then the future generations are going to suffer. And this is, our generation is the only generation which can act against climate change, because it's going to be too late for the future generations to act, because by then the damage is going to be done and it can't be undone after that. Like, so that is why this generation, our generation, needs to act on that. And when I say, coming back to greenhouse gases, why is global warming? Because of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases prevents the sun's heat from being reflected from the earth out back. So that is the greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, ozone, CFC, HFC, all these are greenhouse gases. And how are these greenhouse gases produced by? Because of mostly fossil fuel, burning of fossil fuel, rearing of cattle, because fossil fuels produce a lot of carbon dioxide. And what is fossil fuel is something like under this earth, beneath the earth, in the earth, like coal, petrol, diesel, kerosene, or natural gas. So when you burn this just for our industry, for our transport, for our industry, for our electricity, so all these produces a lot of carbon dioxide. And then of course methane is produced by cattle rearing for human consumption, like rearing of cattle in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, for consumption for human. So that produces a lot of methane. In fact, agriculture also produces, deforestation produces a lot of methane. So all these are causes of climate change, global warming, greenhouse gas, increase of greenhouse gases. So I don't want to get into nitty-gritties of into this technicalities and all these things. So we need to reduce greenhouse gases, and we need to reverse this concept. In fact, reverse in the sense, experts say that this 1.1 degree should be maximum 2 degrees. That is pre-industrial time. That is when 14 to maximum, it should be about 16 degrees. More than 16 degrees, you're going to have a lot of problems of frequent floods, frequent droughts. You're going to have sea famine. You're going to have newer diseases. You're going to have sea levels increasing. You're going to have islands disappearing in the face of Earth. I'm not saying in the next 100 years or 200 years, in the next 50, 60 years. And they're going to have a lot of agricultural issues. You're going to have nutritional problems. You're going to have food deficit, all because of climate change. You're going to have climate refugees. And when I say climate refugee, like say Chennai is a coastal city. And I see if this situation is doesn't relent, the world countries don't take any action against climate change, and if the situation goes along, continues, then I see that half of Chennai won't be there in the next 50, 60 years. So I live in T Nagar. And then, I don't know, T Nagar maybe you can have a beach for T Nagar in the coming, I don't know, coming decades. So it's something scary to even think of that. So this is time that we took action. We say, what can I do? You can say, well, I'm just an individual. What can you do? Yes. I mean, individuals, we join together. A Rotary Club, there's no better example than Rotary Club. You have literally eradicated polio in India. And credit to you, kudos to you. Because of Rotary clubs all around the world relentlessly acting against polio. Now there's no polio. There's about 1 or 2 countries just have few cases of polio. So I'm sure that you can take on the challenge of climate change and global warming, plant more trees, afforestation. Then the government has taken some policies because we're going to have 1 year, we're going to have floods and we're going to have droughts next few years. Your example is Chennai. We had a flood in 2015, Chennai floods. So November, December 2015, we had floods. In 2016, May, we had drinking water deficit in Chennai, just in 6 months. So the policies need to change, and we have to conserve water because the future, I know it's going to be a huge, huge problem for us. Also, because of climate change, the ice is melting. Arctic ice is just there's no land over the Arctic. There's only ice. And the Antarctica is where when it melts, then the ocean level rises. The glaciers are melting. The permafrost is melting. The permafrost melting, there are a couple of issues. One is, once it melts, there are hundreds of thousands of viruses and bacteria which has been entrapped for thousands and thousands of years earlier. So once the permafrost melts, these bacteria and viruses come alive. So we're going to see a lot of other newer issues. Also, there are billions and billions of tons of carbon and methane entrapped in these ice. So when the ice melts, then this carbon and then all the other methane and all the greenhouse gases increases. So once this increases, then again, you're going to see a huge problem. Also, when you say carbon dioxide, because that is about 2/3 of all the greenhouse gases, and then and carbon dioxide, something where our plants and trees absorb carbon and give us oxygen. Same wise, half the oxygen for us are produced by sea, in the sea, phytoplanktons. So the sea absorbs more carbon dioxide than land. And when it absorbs, so there's acidification of oceans, the increase of temperature of seas. And then again, you have the phytoplanktons are dying, and then oxygen production is less. So there's so much of technicalities, everything is linked to us, like our existence along with climate change is all linked. So we need to reverse this process, or at least make it, hold on to just about 2 degrees centigrade. If it goes to 3 or 4 degrees centigrade, then, and the experts are saying that it may increase to 4 degrees centigrade, 3 to 4 degrees by the end of the century. Then nobody could save Earth. Then you're going to see extinction of mankind. I'm not saying in the next 100, 200 years, but maybe 300, 400 years later, you're going to see a lot of problems. And so at that time, and in fact, we'll be responsible for this. Our generation is going to be responsible for it, because we are the one who are supposed to act, who are in a position to act. And if we don't act, then I don't think the world could be saved. So, this is not a small word I'm using, world could be saved and all these words. Like, this is not going to be an immediate effect, but our children, our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, they're going to be affected. So at least for their sake, and let us act in a way so that plant more trees, there's no burning of rubbish. And so there's lots of policy, electronic vehicles or something, coal-based plants should be avoided, thermal plants should be banned. So a lot of things in solar, renewable energy, that's solar, wind and water, that should be prioritized. Individually, you just can't wait for the government saying that, yes, what can I do? And all of you could use these things, and you could create awareness on these things, like, so that you can start reducing the carbon footprints and carbon emission. So all these things needs to be collectively done by all of us, so that we have a better world for future generations to come. And coming back to Corona, when I say that there may be, when you say Corona and global warming, biggest problem is currently today, the problem is Corona. We need to get over this. And then people, when I talk about global warming today, you're in no position to understand, because we're all, in fact, when I say you, it's including me, like, we're all surrounded by what's going to happen about Corona, when it is going to go off, when it's going to die down, and how are we going to, there's going to be a new neo-normal, how this is going to stay there. I see Corona being around for another 2 to 3 years. And our lifestyles should change. So that that change we have to make. And the awareness has to be there. Vaccines can come. To provide vaccines for the entire world is going to take about 2 years. Manufacture them is going to take 8 billion people are there. So that part is there, like, and then you don't know what strain the vaccine is going to come, or you don't know what strain the virus is going to mutate. So all these issues are there when you talk about Corona. But let us be optimistic. Let us be optimistic that yes, we will get over this. I don't have a doubt about it. We're going to get over this. And all of you, please be safe. Firstly, your safety is more important. Yes, we are the offset of Corona is not only health offset, then we have a social offsets. We have an economic issue. Crores of people have lost their jobs. Worst phase the entire world is going through economically. Worse than the Great Depression, which happened in 1929 to 33. All this worse than that. We're going through an economic phase. And but also let us be optimistic that yes, we will get back, and once definitely it is pushing us, and nature is showing it is angry. Mother Nature is showing that yes, I am angry with you, and it is warning us through Corona, I could say. So it's just a small warning for us, saying that if you don't put in the act, if the world, all the people don't act and then I'm going to be more angry in the coming days. So let us act today, stop this trend of global warming, climate change, and let us look to newer technologies and renewable energy and planting more trees and all these things. And I'm sure that Rotarians can do this. You have done huge, a wonder to the world by eradicating polio. So I'm sure when you take up the next challenge of global warming or climate change, I'm sure you could do it. So I think with these words, I don't want to bore you more or go into more technicalities. I'd love to answer any questions if you have, so that any specific questions about Corona or climate change or any other issues, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anbamani. We have a very educated politician next to us, and it is so nice to hear him speak about the climate changes and things that we can do to improve. Doctor, one personal question I would like to ask is, of course, I thought during this lockdown, the nature actually healed. That's what people say. So there was birds flying, the lakes were clear, the sky was blue. Everything was so nice to see. So I thought it was, recovering. I'm not sure whether I'm right, because the traffics are back, the factories are open, people are coming out, and there's no fear of Corona at all in any, and there are a lot of parties happening, and things are like just back to normalcy. And I don't see anyone having that fear of that so-called virus, which could cost you your life. People are actually just so normal now. I would like you to throw some light on that, Doctor, before we move on to the...
When initially in the month of March end, we had a lockdown. So that lockdown went a long way in creating an awareness about Corona. Because earlier people didn't know how it is spread and how to prevent it and all these things. But at the same time, the lockdown had given us a lot of economic issues, and then the work, employment, and all these things. And during those 3 months initially, when there was not much of industries were not functioning, there was not much traffic, no one went out, the transportation. So at that point of time, yes, there was a little rebounding back. And but the experts say that when say 100% only, about 8%, you could say there was a reduction of all these things. And some people are saying that maybe there's about 40-50%. No, it's only about 8%. So the 92% was still there. And then the last 3-4 months, in fact, after the lockdown, now when it was relaxed, people going back to normal, and then just back to square one. I don't see anybody. You go to Coimbatore market today, there are thousands of people not in one wearing a mask. So and one in Korea, one woman had transmitted Corona to nearly about 500 people. So you have incidences like one person can transmit to 500 or 1,000 people. So it goes on around and around. So that is something where, but as you're saying, Jata, that yes, I could even outside my house, I could hear some birds coming back after so many years. And so that is something where it had come back. And see, why the Corona and climate changes, the natural habitats of the animals have been disturbed. For example, take example bats. Bats live in forests and caves and all these things. So when there's deforestation, so their habitat is destroyed. So they go into the habitat of other animals. So all the animals carry bacteria and viruses. Even humans carry bacteria and viruses. Some of them good bacteria. You have a gut bacteria, which is good for you. And animals carry bacteria and viruses. So when the bacteria viruses of one animal trespasses into the other animal, then there's a mutation of the viruses and bacteria. So when we are destroying the habitats of animals, so when they go to other habitat, there is where the mutation happens. That is where the problem starts. That is something where, that is why we should again, so during this lockdown period, lots of tigers were spotted lying on the roads in Mudumalai. lots of elephants. People couldn't go there near the roads because they took over their habitat. It's their habitat. We had trespassed into them. So
Exactly.
that is something very, very wrong, which we have done, and we should, it's their habitat and we should be here.
I hope we learn a lesson from that, but unlikely. Doctor, also, like you were talking about global warming, I personally believe that it should start from school. What do you think? Why can't school have this as a curriculum? Start from kids understanding what
Absolutely.
global warming is.
This is something which I've been advocating. In fact, I've been talking this in Parliament as well, saying that yes, it should happen in schools and colleges, and it should have come in the curriculum. Because when I've visited a lot of schools in the last two to 3 years, I've visited a lot of colleges. None of them have any awareness about this, and in fact, including the teachers. So this is something where, in fact, I've been advocating as a climate emergency. In fact, I've spoken in Parliament that India should declare a climate emergency, or the world should declare a climate emergency. Countries should declare. A lot of countries have, a lot of cities have declared climate emergencies. So we should declare a climate emergency and then have an emergency mode, like what happened in Corona. We had an emergency mode, a lockdown concept. So for climate emergency, we should be in an emergency mode to reverse this phenomena. And absolutely, you're right. Like children should be taught about this, because they are the ones who are going to be suffering in the coming future.
Doctor, are you open for questions from our guests here? There are a lot of audiences who would like to ask you a few questions. So I can see one Tamil Vanan who's saying, good evening, Dr. Anbumani sir. Child education is a big question now due to COVID-19. Will really online classes help kids to develop their knowledge? Do you have any idea to restructure education system? Please brief.
See, the online classes, so-called online classes, we are in it's a dichotomy, because personally, I see that online classes are detrimental to children. When I say detrimental in the sense, it's taxing the children physically, mentally, emotionally. One is, not many children have a cell phone with them. Their parents have it. And most of the children study online classes through their phones. So the parents should have more than one phone or two phones. If they have two children in the house, they should have 3 or 4 phones. And living in the city is different, because you have a strong signal here coming up. But then when you're living in other smaller towns or villages, you can't get any signal. You can't even have a small talk. You can't, nothing is audible. Having an online class in fact, take for example Chidambaram. Chidambaram is a town. And even some of my friends in Chidambaram, when I talk to them through Zoom or anything like that, they don't get a signal in Chidambaram. So that is something where you need to, and putting the children in front of a phone or a laptop for 4 hours, 5 hours, it's really taxing them, and it's really something where the government needs to relook at that. At the same time, now people may think that children are losing their schools, and we have been 5 months down the curriculum, and this is just a temporary phenomenon. And nothing is going to be lost much by these children for another couple of months, 1 or 2 months, like, so that once it comes down, so all these things. Some of the countries have started schools. In fact, America, that's the worst example I could say. There they have the president who's not bothered about climate change or global warming, and he says this is a farce. And then he's starting schools just for election or for political purpose. But thinking that starting schools or colleges like back to normalcy, I mean, I don't see that being normal, because children are very vulnerable today. And not only children, they take it back to their houses, their parents. So that is something where the government needs to introspect and think carefully and not rush. And I'm not saying that next 2 to 3 years is going to be like this. Just next couple of months, let us be patient. And you could, for like examination, all these things, like cut down part of the curriculum for exams, and nothing much. It's not, they're not going to have a big loss of knowledge or education just because of a couple of months.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. That I believe the quality has to kind of improve and not force our children to study too much, carry all those bags. I think our Prime Minister was bringing some kind of a rule that will cut down on those curriculum. I think
Because
that's
already
going
in Tamil Nadu, there's a committee which has gone and recommended 1/3 reduction in curriculum for this year.
yes,
So some
yes.
things like this should happen every
Should
year.
happen, should happen. Yes. We have a very interesting question. Somebody wants to ask you directly if you could take
Yes,
that.
please, please. I don't
Uh,
mind at all.
she's president of a club called Miraki, Suchitra. The mic is all yours. Suchi, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Sujata.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, sir. Good. Very well. Actually, I wanted to tell an information. My sister had met you in Japan, so I think you should be knowing her.
Manivanan's wife. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
Sumati Manivanan. Yeah. I'm her
Gajapati uncle's daughter.
Yes, doctor. Yeah, I have a quick question. I want to share one more information to you that in Rotary we are now this year we are concentrating more on tree planting and
Very good, very good.
yeah. So we are also into this Miyawaki. Have you heard of Miyawaki forest? It's a dense tree planting where you can plant so many trees and in one particular place. Usually trees cannot be planted like that, but in Miyawaki you can plant like a dense forest. It is actually. So we are
Like a
concentrating
cluster,
on that.
just a forest cluster, like just a dense
Yes,
cluster.
yes, exactly.
And these trees are indigenous or I mean local trees, like so.
Yeah, local trees. You can.
That is very important, like because.
Yes, we have done it in two places now, so we are doing more also. And my question was actually to, we are actually planning. We were planning for the parks also to cover with. Herbal trees, actually herbal plants and everything,
Yes.
so it will be good for inhaling and medicinal value also. But the problem is with the government. So what is your say, I mean, what kind of, how to approach, who to approach, and what can what help can we get from you, if I can ask you also?
Okay.
So
Thank
so
you.
that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And in fact, when I was health minister in 2004 to 2009, I started a concept of a herbal garden in schools. In Delhi, in fact, I inaugurated a lot of herbal gardens in different schools in Delhi at the time, so that the children, every school can start a herbal garden. And one is they'll know what herbs and what is herbs, and so preserving them and that concept, like. And in fact, this scheme was taken throughout the country, and in fact, we had funds allocated for the schools to start these herbal gardens at the time. But then, unfortunately, after that, it didn't take off, and people, my successors, they weren't interested, because I was interested very much in our own system, our own Indian system of health, like our Siddha, our own Ayurveda system, our natural system, naturopathy, or yoga. Yoga, I've been saying that yoga founded in India, exported to America, imported back to India. So we follow the Americans, so that, and then there's no scientific validation for yoga. And yoga today can reduce hypertension, reduce diabetes, reduce stress, mental stress. And today, during Corona times, when you're all mentally very much stressed out, yoga is something which helps out a lot. I mean, there's no words for me. So that's something where we need to. Coming back to herbal garden, something, yes. Unfortunately, I don't know about the policy of this government about herbal garden, but it's something where it should be started in schools, and anybody could start, and the government has to support it in different ways. Because herbal, something, one is herbs, second is an organic concept. So you're not going to use any pesticides, fertilizers or pesticides, and natural fertilizers you're going to use, because no more pesticides, all these things, like. that is one way of preserving, then enlightening our children, future generations to go into this. Thank you.
I think that answered Mr. Venkatraman's question, who said, "Hi, sir. We have been eradicating tobacco and gutka all over India, and you have closed about 90,000 liquor shops through legal right. You have given best ideas to government to close liquor shops. Kindly brief and also your ideas regarding Siddha and traditional medicine." This was his question.
Thank you, Mr. Venkatraman. See, first issue about is alcohol consumption. The problem with India is they don't know how to drink. They just want to be drunk. And they compare themselves to the Western world, where they hold one drink for 1 hour or two drinks for 3 hours. Here, they hold one drink for 1 minute and 5 drinks in 20 minutes late. And they just want. And another issue pertaining to our country is in the Western world, you have a concept of aging of alcohol. Here in India, you manufacture it, next day it is there in the shop, and the third day it's there in your liver. And the highest amount of liver diseases in the world is in India. The highest amount of alcohol consumption in India is in Tamil Nadu. The highest amount of accidents in the world is in India. The highest amount of accidents in India is in Tamil Nadu. The highest amount of accidents in any given city in India is Chennai. And most of them are alcohol linked. The highest number of mental health disorders in India is in Tamil Nadu, and most of them are alcohol linked. The highest number of suicides in India, earlier it was in Kerala, now it's Tamil Nadu. Most of them are alcohol linked. Highest number of crime. See, I'll just one example at it. When you had a lockdown, for 45 days, there was no alcohol shops in Tamil Nadu. There was not one women-related crime in those 45 days. I didn't hear anything. Nobody heard anything about one crime against women. Because there was no alcohol, the shops were closed. The second day when the shops opened, we had pleaded with the government not to. It's a good opportunity. The second day when the shops opened, there were 2 incidences relating to children, women, children. Just the second day. And then since then, every week we have been having so much of incidences of rapes and all issues and gory things that we've been hearing there. So this is something where needs to. And in fact, we went to the High Court, we went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court had closed the alcohol shops on the national highways, 90,000 shops. But then the governments of in India, they had a way of opening shops. But they say in fact, some states like, they said that this is not a national highway, this is a state highway, just to sell alcohol. Some of them made the entrance the other side of not national highway, the other side of the. So a lot of things happen. So this is something very, very. We need to have a policy. We need to have a policy because I see children aged 10, 11, 12 drinking. And when they become 20, 22, their lives are gone. Their lives are ruined. So this is something where we need to introspect. And in fact, my party's policy is prohibition. If they see earlier, people and say that because if there's prohibition, then there'll be illicit distillation. I haven't seen that 45 days when the shops are closed, there were not even one incidence of illicit distillation. So if someone wants to go to Pondicherry or someone wants to go to Bangalore, how long is going to go there? So all these issues are there. The economic issues. The government's revenue for alcohol through alcohol is about 36,000 crores. But the loss to the individual and to the government and to society in Tamil Nadu is about, there was a calculation 5 years ago, it was about 1,34,000 crores. So the cost benefit or the cost ratio, risk benefit ratio, closing down. And then, so something like this, we need to have a policy on. I mean, this is something where I think you need to have a complete discussion just on only on this topic. Like, so, because there's so many issues, like 200 diseases are caused, health conditions are caused by alcohol. So many issues are there, like because of alcohol. And of course, tobacco, I don't need to tell you about the effects of tobacco, because cancers and health disease, heart disease, and blood pressure, so many things are there. And coming
Doctor,
back
I'm
to,
sure many people must be appreciating for the 2nd October, dry day kind of a thing. Um,
yes,
that is one thing which is like accepted by ladies especially, because
yes,
there's sometimes a long weekend, and then 2nd October is also a weekend. It's like family is doomed.
yes, I mean, the women are helpless in this, I see.
Helpless.
And the cities are, the women are better off in cities, but I see in villages, they don't have a say. And the poor things, like, I mean, they've been abused and money is gone and their earnings have been so thrown out. And so that is something where they are suffering.
The பேசலாம்.
You have to create a lot of awareness, Doctor, in this. I think lots and lots of awareness, and Rotary may be able to help on this. We have always been talking about planting trees and polio eradication, but this is a very important thing that I think every family will be saved, every child will be saved if we create this kind of an awareness about tobacco and alcohol. I think we should take it up.
Every family is affected. In fact, even my family is affected.
Yes.
One of my uncle, he died because of it. His son. So every family is affected by alcohol. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to read this question for you. Okay, sir, we are facing human and wild animals face new challenges for survival because of climate change. More frequent and intense drought, storms, heat waves, rising sea levels, melting glaciers, and warming oceans can directly harm animals, destroy the places they live in, and wreak havoc on people's livelihoods. So what's your question, gentlemen?
Maybe he's asking about the man-animal conflict.
Yeah.
I'm on the animal side. I support the animal side.
Okay. Yeah, best friends.
Because it is their habitat.
Their habitat, yeah.
So we don't have any authority to go into their habitat. They have been living there from eternity. They have been living there. So once we get into their habitat and then there's a conflict and saying that yes, a tiger has attacked or an elephant has attacked, I mean, that's something where they have to be relocated. Humans have to be relocated from the forests or adjoining, and then the tribes, they have been having a coexistence with the forest. So both, that is something which I'm for. The tribal people out there, and for them, preserving the forest is preserving their livelihood. But then the others who go there and then create a lot of destroy the forest and all these things. Take for example.
Basically, they're selfish.
Absolutely. And, the government should have a very more proactive policy. No, Sujata, you're muted. I mean, please unmute it.
I'm sorry about that. Okay, dear Anna, in Tamil Nadu, the government has started some herbal garden in some parks in tourist areas in cities, but it was not maintained by local authorities. In this pandemic situation, only we are thinking about the herbal plants. So it is a personal grievance, I guess, but they are thinking about it. Good.
I think we need to, as individuals, we need to think about and then do something about it, because
why leave everything to the government?
The government, just being dependent on the government always, like, and faulting them or not faulting them, that's different opinion. But let us do it. Since it is our world, it's our city, Chennai. In fact, I live in Chennai. Chennai is facing a huge challenge. So, and it is going to face a lot more challenges because we have lots of plans, good plans for Chennai.
Okay.
So Chennai, example, Chennai's water requirement is about 15.5 TMC a year. But our reservoirs, we have 4 main reservoirs.
Right.
So these reservoirs total capacity is about around about 7 to 8 TMCs only. Chembrambakam, it's about 3.5. Then we have Sholavaram, Red Hills. So these 4 reservoirs, their capacity is only about 7 to 8 TMCs. But Chennai has got more rainfall, average rainfall than Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is 950. Chennai has got about 1,000 millimeters a year. But most of them are just going to the sea. We need to have a policy about rainwater harvesting, recharge, then sewage and both the rainwater and the sewage are mixing and then just going running off. That we have grey water conservation. So lots of awareness on that needs to be done. Like Chennai has
How difficult or how expensive is it, sorry to interrupt you, to convert the seawater into normal drinking water or usage water like Dubai does it? I mean, is it so difficult? We have so much water everywhere, but not a drop to drink.
I am not for it.
Okay. The reason?
Desalination plants are meant for only desert countries, not tropical countries like ours, which have. I could say that it is foolish to send rainwater into the sea and then get back water from the sea. It's foolish. And a tropical country like ours, city like Chennai, which has got 1,000 millimeters of rain every year, spending 30,000 crores and then thousands of crores recurring every year for these desalination plants, definitely it is not prudent. Dubai, or they have a rainfall, Israel has a rainfall of about 50 millimeters. Dubai around that. So they could have desalination, and then because the cost of running it, then the environmental pollution happening because of desalination plant, all these things. We need more formation of more reservoirs, more lakes. This has been recommended by Commission in 1970s itself, that Chennai should have 10 more lakes formed at that point of time to hold these and desilting all these things like all. Chennai has got 3 good rivers, Adyar River, the Kuvam River, and the Kosastale or Kotrele River.
Yeah, but no use.
But these are all, this has become now sewage disposal, and we can't drink that. People were drinking water from Kuvam River 50 years back, 40, 50 years back, just for 40, 50 years back. And today we can't even go near that. Why? Because we have destroyed it. There are so many cities in the world which have kept their rivers clean and then have gone through a lot. We have destroyed.
So the word Kuvam is a synonym with dirt.
Yes.
Am I
Smell,
right?
dirt, sewage, garbage. And Kuvam is 72 kilometers long. Kuvam starts from a village called Kuvam in Tirulur district. And it flows 72 kilometers. And out of 72 kilometers, nearly about 60 kilometers, even today you can drink that water. Today that water is used for agricultural purposes, drinking purposes. Only the last 12 kilometers have become sewage. Once it enters Chennai, and then it's completely gone. So this should be river. Adyar River from Chembrambakam. Adyar River is the outflow from a lot of tanks from Kanchipuram district. So it then comes through Chembrambakam and then through Adyar River. And then you have this Kosastale River coming from Andhra to Tamil Nadu, from Pundi, then comes through, goes to North Chennai. That is better than these 2 rivers, but then the water shortage there. So, and then we have this. So these are something which we need to preserve these. create more reservoirs, create more awareness, recharge our. So that is something, and mitigation and adaptation because of climate change. We need to mitigate. We need to adapt, getting new technologies so that we could, because Chennai, the population of Chennai is earlier about last census was about 92, 91 lakhs. I'm sure today it must be 1 crore. If Chennai was a country by itself according to population, I think Chennai would be the 84th largest country in the world or something. Tamil Nadu's population officially last census was 7.21, 7 crores 21 lakhs. But today, in the next census we have due next year, I'm sure it'll be about 8.5 crores. Like, and Tamil Nadu's population is equal to Germany population.
That many are also dying due to COVID.
So no, that is even that is just a few of them, because so that is something. And India, at least the good thing, at least that like the death rate due to COVID is one of the least worldwide. There are a lot of factors which when the scientists are all, they don't know what the factors maybe are: vaccination, BCG vaccination, or malaria endemic area. So all these things, they are saying some of these things, right? But at the same time, the reported cases or the not reported cases, all these things, that also could be argued otherwise. Like so.
So there's a very serious question, if you would like to take that. A person privately has messaged me that child labor is still going too much this pandemic time. I see more than small industries at village side, but no one watching. Please tell something and do something about it.
This is something which, in fact, we have been advocating against. There's been lots of rules, regulations, laws on these child laborers. And especially you can see this, the industries in the south, where some of the cottage industries, the cracker industry, the matches and all these things, where every household does it, and then directly or indirectly their children are doing it, and then the child. And today, because of Corona, the school, they're not going to schools and the schools are closed. So they take time off and there's no employment of the parents. Because of that, the children are made to work discreetly. So this is something where absolutely the person who has asked question, yes, right? And the government needs to be more proactive at this point of time. But everything is brushed under the concept of Corona today.
So wasn't it banned? The cracker in Sivagasi was banned.
Yes,
if I'm
rules are there, laws are there, everything is there, but it's not been enforced. Corruption and a lot of it.
That's sad. That's sad. So one question. You have established multi-speciality high-tech medical treatment facilities at Pondicherry and Tambaram National Siddha Hospital. After your health ministry period, we have not seen any high-tech hospitals. For the please share your please share us the necessity of high-tech medical infrastructure in rural areas. Okay, the necessity of high-tech medical infrastructure.
To start with, good healthcare. Good healthcare is not building fancy hospitals. Good healthcare is preventing people from going to these hospitals by giving them good clean water to drink, good healthy environment, giving them good nutrition so they'll have immunity, and good air. So clean air. So when you give all these, they don't need to go to the hospital. They're going to be good. They're going to be healthy. Half the persons going to hospitals are because of they don't drink clean water. So when you give clean water and good food, good nutrition, so 70%, 80% of the beds are going to be empty. You don't need to build all these hospitals. So that is where you have a good concept of healthcare. But then again, coming to other issues like, yes, the government hospitals, example, take the policy of United Kingdom, where they have a concept called NHS, National Health System, National Health Scheme, where this is, I could say, arguably one of the best systems in the world. It takes a lot of finance. In fact, it takes nearly about 22% of their total budget for the NHS. But 92% of United Kingdom's population are treated by NHS, only 8% by the private sector. And the government hospitals are some of the best in the world. So that is something where here in Tamil Nadu, India, you have money, you go to a good hospital. You don't have money, you go to the government hospital. And government hospital, you know how the system works there. There's no place, the bathrooms, the water, the beds, the treatment. So there's huge disparity on both. This needs to be, that's why, in fact, JIPMER is something very close to me. In fact, when I was a minister, I given autonomy, brought in an act called JIPMER Act. I spent a lot of money into getting these facilities. And also something which is very close to me is that I built a cancer hospital, 100-bedded cancer hospital in JIPMER, where, and not only that, but a lot of treating centers there, like, so that a lot of people have been affected by cancer. So there they could go there, get themselves free of cost. And earlier, someone with a heart problem in JIPMER before my tenure, they were asked to come 2 years later on for treatment, because that was the backlog. Today, just 24 hours. It takes them 24 hours to. So a lot of things like these things, like, so we need to empower these hospitals, make them more modern, so that the common people, they're not discriminated. They should be treated there. They should have a good healthcare system.
Thank you so much, sir. Somebody really wants to get into your private life, wants to know more about your schooling, your education, and how fun you had during your school days.
Schooling is, I did my schooling till 10th in Montfort School Yakar. And it's hostel, and so today some of the closest friends are from my schools in college, and 11th and 12th I did it in my hometown Tindivana. Why? Because my dad,
mute everyone, please. Host, mute everyone.
He had personally seen that I'm studying, and so many things like so that. And then I got into Madras Medical College, and I finished my graduation in Madras Medical College. And I could say that one of the best years in my life is the college life. So I've also said in different programs that if God comes front of me and asks me what do you want, what boon you want, I'll give back my college days. Like, so. That's how in college.
Is it because of your father that you chose to join politics, sir, or you always had this inclination to be a politician?
Because of my father, I became a doctor.
Okay.
Because he's also a doctor, so that he wanted me to only be a doctor, nothing else.
All right.
I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to represent India in athletics and football and these things like. But then he had a hospital. He is a doctor, and so that was his thinking. Then I stood first in my district in 12th. So then, and what he did was in my 12th exam, every day after his clinic, he used to come to my room and make sure I study till 1 in the night. Then he goes. So that's something where that sort of thing he had. Then I became a doctor, and then later on, I was heading this NGO called Pasumai Thai. And in fact, I was working for 1.5 years as a doctor in a village called Nalalam. It's about 11 kilometers from my hometown, Tindivana. I used to go in the morning and come back in the evening. That is my first experience of a rural area, people, how they live there, what they don't have. It was an eye-opener for me. It was really an eye-opener. And that was something which had it was something which has struck me, saying that absolutely they didn't have any facilities. They don't even know what is the problem. They don't know how to deal with the fever, or so they don't know the importance of the symptoms. So all these things, like, and injuries, so many people died because of injuries like that. So that was an eye opener. And then later on, Pasumai Tayagam, it was, I planted trees in lots of schools all around Tamil Nadu, built a lot of check dams ourselves, desilted a lot of lakes ourselves. In fact, that was where I protested against tobacco. In fact, in movies, you have people smoking, people looking after the heroes and then smoking, all these things. Like, that's something where I protested on the ground against tobacco. And then I had in fact, when I became the minister at the time, 2004, that is something where, because I protested, I know the first-hand problem about it, and then signed saying that there shouldn't be any smoking in public places. So that's something where it came from my background of protesting, and then the NGO. I love nature and environment, and so something where it's very close to me. The environment is very, very close to me. Nature is very close to me. I love going for walks or trekking and mountaineering, and I love doing scuba diving. One of my favorite is fishing. I have fished in all the oceans in the world. My favorite is the Lakshadweep. So many things, like I'm missing all those things right now.
It's so nice to have a politician who's actually well-read, who's educated, speaks well, also takes care of his health. Healthy mind is a healthy body. We've seen a video of you working out, sir, some time back. So we can make out that you've really, really lost a lot of weight.
Yes, and badminton is something very close to me. Badminton is a passion for me. And see, badminton is something where a 3-year-old or a 90-year-old can play that.
Exactly.
We learn it. Like. So I'm the president of the Tamil Nadu Badminton Association, as well as the treasurer of the Badminton Association of India. And since taking over, we have a lot of young budding players from Tamil Nadu winning at the national and international levels. And I'm so happy that we are encouraging them in a lot of ways to play. And my aim is taking these 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, then putting them into this game and then making them play. And not only youngsters, when the senior people, they should. It's easy to learn, and then lots of facilities are coming up in badminton. And
you just need a racket and a little bit of space, and then you can just
absolutely
easy. 1-to-1.
You can go on.
Yeah, you don't need a team. Our charter president from this club, sir, her name is Devi Krishna. Incidentally, she's also the daughter of the late actress Raja Sulochana. She was the one who started this club. She has a question. She said, "How could we together as that's Jayanti? That's Devi Krishna." She's asked. Devi can ask that question directly.
Yes, Doctor, we as Rotarians, what do you think we can do to, reduce the carbon footprint, and in what way go green efforts that we can employ and get this climate change thing to come down, bring down the climate change?
See, first thing is create an awareness. Like you say, you go to all the schools and colleges. Rotary clubs, all the Rotary clubs, go to all, because you have a license to do it. I can't do as a politician. I'm not invited to schools, or they look at me as a politician. But you have the license, Rotary. And you could go to colleges, you could go to schools and say that this is a problem you're facing. Create an awareness. See, when I say planting trees, yes, it is going to change. But then when these children, they look at take it upon themselves, like then they're the champions to do that. That reducing the carbon footprints is mostly government policy is different. Like, as an individual, what you could do, planting a lot of trees, and then making awareness on renewable energies. See, that's a little expensive when I say you take to solar paneling, how much is going to individual houses like that, these things. Like that awareness should be there, like, and amongst the children. So that is something where Rotary, that is the need of the hour today. Awareness is the need of hour, because then we have to begin from somewhere. Today, there's absolute zero awareness, absolutely zero awareness among the children out there. Like, so that is where we need to start somewhere, because when I spoke in Parliament, a lot of my colleagues also, they're not aware of concept of climate change. I've been repeatedly speaking. And so that's something where you need to go to, please go to all the schools, all the colleges.
Sure.
And every time when you have any function, you talk about climate change.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Any more questions? Host keeps muting me. Okay, there is a word called muting.
Yes.
I lost the question, so let's just scroll down. There's so many questions popping up.
No, it's about the corona and the lockdown and the
the industries are like badly hit. Probably he's talking about the economic conditions of the country right now.
See, firstly, people may ask, like, do we need a lockdown? Does lockdown prevents corona? See, one example I'll tell you. If we didn't have a lockdown, example, I'm just saying hypothetically, I'm answering you. In 1 month, there will be about 1 lakh people affected if we don't have a lockdown. Because of the lockdown, only about 10,000 people are affected. So this 10,000 people, they could be managed because our health system, our number of beds, then the contact, they have to be contacted and cordoned off. So all these things could be done because a fewer number of cases because of lockdown. If we didn't have a lockdown, then there's going to be 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the number of cases. Our systems will be overwhelmed. Our hospitals will be full. And not only our hospital problem, non-corona issues also won't be addressed. Today, people are scared to go to the hospital for heart issues or even some other issues, normal issues, where if there's no corona, people will go to the hospital. So that also needs, so because of that, this lockdown, definitely it is needed, it was needed, it is needed. But then how long? Because of our economy, a lot of people have lost their employment. People couldn't pay rent. Some of them can't pay the school fees for the children. And the United Nations say that nearly about 30 to 60 million people will be in poverty in the coming months or years because of corona. And there's going to be food scarcity as well. Like, so all these things like, so we have to be prudent on lockdown, relaxing, how long, how, and all these things. Today, I don't see anything. Today, we open even a cinema theaters. There's only thing which has not been functioning in the schools and colleges, that's all. Even schools also, they say some states, they say that if they want, they can go, the parents consent and all these things. So everything is open today. And the only problem today is, yes, I mean, there should be a structural opening, partial opening, relaxing, everything should be balanced, but awareness should be there. I don't see any awareness among the public. And some point of time, I even advocated scaring them. But also that also doesn't seem to work.
There's sort of suicidal cases because of this economy.
Yes,
they have to survive.
I absolutely understand that. That's why you need to balance, be more prudent and balance between that. You have to open or you can't be indefinitely locked down. Because of, and also the government has to help them out. I'm not working for 6 months. I can't pay the rent. I can't pay the interest. At least we had recommended like at least waive the interest for a period of time. But then finally the government, what they did was they waived the penalty for interest. Like, so that's what the government is doing. But that is something where the government needs to help out. Some of the countries, they're helping the industry out in a big way, spending billions of dollars like industry. But in India also, the government needs to help them out. So that is something
And
where,
hugely populated.
yes, the population is both are advantage as well as a disadvantage. So that is something where the
What
government.
do you think about the second wave of this corona? I mean, is it going to hit India? What is your predictions? I'm not asking you as an astrologer, but what is your...
See, in Europe, in some of the states in America now, they're going through a second wave.
Yeah.
Why? Because initially there was a lockdown, and then there's a lot of awareness, and then they reduced a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And then once that happened, they were very relaxed.
Yeah.
So they were overconfident, they were very relaxed. A lot of youngsters started going out, enjoying parties, and then doing lots of things like. So that is why, and then they opened out all their industry and everything else like. So by that, the second wave is there. Like India now, it's going through a phase. We haven't even, the first phase itself been so-called. We have not even gone through a plateau. It's not going. It's still just going around the same level. Like every day, about 60,000-70,000 cases are there, and I would say that these are just the known cases. Just known cases, in the sense these are the cases which are tested. And I would say that, I mean, as a doctor, I would say that the untested cases or not tested cases maybe will be 10 times more than this. It's a huge number.
But there's a hoax that people are being tested positive is also a hoax. I mean, and it's not quite true. I mean, many laboratories actually just say that they are positive, but they're actually negative. I don't know, for whatever reasons it may be.
There may be some of them may be false positive, false negative, but then the symptoms are there, signs are there, all these things like. But this virus is a unique virus in the sense like, unlike other viruses, once it infects a person, other viruses, once they infect a person, they show symptoms in the 3rd day or 5th or 7th, 9th or 10th or 8th day. And since once the incubation period is there, between 3 days or 7, 1 week, 2 weeks, till the incubation period, they are not infective to others. The other viruses are when the disease, when they show symptoms, then they start infecting others. But this coronavirus is where if it infects a person, that person can infect others from day one without that person knowing that he or she has got corona, and that person is asymptomatic, and that person can infect people surrounding him or her. So that is the uniqueness of this virus. That is why this virus is dangerous. And that is something where, that is why we need to be doubly cautious about this virus. But at the same time, I'm confident that we're going through a point of time. And I see the next couple of months where this definitely, we will see a reduction.
Hopefully. So there's a question which was asked to me privately. Why is the government not supporting water resource management? I know it's your favorite, but why no one is considering this? Water resource management.
Water resource management, it's a big word. So water management is something where, unfortunately, I could say Tamil Nadu, unfortunately, the governments in Tamil Nadu for the last 50 years didn't concentrate on water management. Whereas governments in Andhra, in Karnataka, in Maharashtra, in Madhya Pradesh, in Gujarat, they focused on water management. They had a lot of schemes. Just one example I'll tell you. The total capacity of Kerala doesn't have a problem because it has got about more than 3,000 millimeters of rain a year. And most of it runs off into the Arabian Sea. And it's all lush throughout the year. Problem here in southern Andhra, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, the total capacity of water storage, when you take lakes, dams, all put together, total capacity is around 170 TMC. So a TMC is 1,000 million cubic feet. So it comes to around 1,000 million is about 1 billion. 1 billion is about 100 crores. So 100 crore cubic feet is, 1 cubic foot is about 28 liters. It can hold 28 liters of water. So 1 TMC is about 2,800 crore liter of water. So when our Mettur dam is capacity, that's the biggest dam in Tamil Nadu, it can hold about 93 TMC. Second biggest dam is Bhavani Sagar, it holds about 32 TMC. So our total capacity of Tamil Nadu is about 170 TMC. Whereas the total capacity in Karnataka, all the dams put together, all the water bodies, everything put together is about approximately 350 TMC. In Andhra Pradesh, the total capacity of all the dams and water bodies put together is approximately 550 TMC. So this is where we have lost out. We have rain. In fact, Tamil Nadu has got more rain than Andhra. But Andhra has got 3 times the capacity of holding capacity of water than Tamil Nadu. So this is where we failed to harness, catch our rain. And then we are beginning to Karnataka, Andhra, and Kerala for water and all these things, like fighting. That is something where the last 55 years, they have failed to focus on water management, which they should have invested a lot more. Even today, my argument is invest 1 lakh crores in Tamil Nadu's water management. There are a couple of schemes, about 20-25 schemes. You invest 1 lakh crores in this, you won't have a water problem for the next 200 years, 100-200 years. So that is something where we need to invest. And because of climate change, we're going to have bigger problems also. We have rain, but we're just letting it go.
Either we have a lot of floods or it's completely no rains at all. It's extremes. Yeah.
Problem earlier, the monsoon in Tamil Nadu was about 42 to 44 days. We had 44 days, both southwest monsoon and then the northeast. Northeast is for us, it's more northeast than southwest. It comprises about 42 to 44 days. Today, the monsoon has compressed to about 32 to 34 days. But the rainfall is increased 100 millimeters, but it is compressed. So in a short period of time, a lot of rain falls. And we don't have holding capacity, and then all of it goes to the sea, and then after that.
The holding capacity is the lake. Is that what you're trying to say?
Lakes or dams and reservoirs and all these things. So in Kaveri River originates from Karnataka. It flows 800 kilometers. In Karnataka, they have about 4 dams, major dams of Kaveri. In Tamil Nadu, we have only 1 dam, Mettur Dam.
Without the help of the government, is it possible for the Rotarians or the Rotary clubs to do anything about this? Restoration of lakes is one department that the Rotary is actually looking into. But don't you think we need the support of the government, sir?
Absolutely. Without these are all major issues, major problems. But in fact, in a meeting where I think we're in Vellore, a Rotary Club meeting, they invited me to Vellore. That was 2 years back, I think. So I requested them, like they said, you Rotary Club, some of them could adopt a village lake, just 1 lake, not 10 or 20, just 1 lake in some village around Chennai, Kanjipuram, Tiruvallur, one. You desilt that lake, clean it up, clean up the inlet, outlet, build embankment and all these things, and so that you see how it is. And when there's rainfall, there's nothing more satisfying than the lake getting filled up and then the surrounding wells being recharged.
It's like having your own terrace garden, cutting your own fruits and vegetables and eating it.
As satisfying as that.
Satisfying, yes.
Something, my suggestion to Rotary Club is they could adopt just 1 lake. I'm not saying a big lake, just a small lake with about 50 acres or maybe 30 acres or 20 acres, just a small lake. And then clean it up, desilt it, clean it up, and then adopt it. There's nothing more satisfying than that.
So there is one past district governor, Pati. He's asking children of today are glued to electronic gadgets. How do you indulge them in trekking, nature, hobbies that can mold them just like you? Can we do something about it now?
That is one of the biggest problems today children are facing. When I was a child, I used to go to my village and I used to go around jumping into wells and going climbing trees and seeing nature and all these things. Today that is gone. They don't even go to the villages. They don't see what is there. The nature is around us. There's nothing in nature, and they're all hooked on to the television and phones. And the phones
They
are
don't like to communicate. They don't like people. They like their space.
that is every household.
Sad.
And the parents, what they do is they're multitasking. Parents are multitasking, especially the mom. She goes to work and she has to come home. She cooks and she cleans up and she does all the work, and she multitasks. And then the child is, when they say the child, okay, you watch TV, because for them, or you watch your laptop or video games, and so they are hooked into that. So, but that is another reason, like.
But if you ask the children, they'll say that even the mothers are hooked onto the telephones and
That is
all these
different. They have
gadgets.
to see today the women are the most affected by corona. Why? Because
Exposure to sunlight.
a housewife example. Earlier, before corona, the husband used to go to work, the children used to go to school or colleges, and she's got her free time in the house to talk to the neighbor, to go to the temple, or see TV or sleep, take rest. Today, nothing could be done. With the husband, the children, everybody in the house, and she doesn't have the TV channel remote with her, and she has to do the cooking, she's cleaning, and she's so stressed out, emotionally, mentally. She's so stressed out, and you can't go to the temple. I mean, now at least they've opened out a little so you can. Earlier, you can go to the house, out of the house. So that is something where this corona has affected not only economically but emotionally, mentally, physically, economically. A lot of effects have been. It's been a huge crisis for all of us, especially women.
Yes, sir. Our own President Jayanti wants to ask, everything begins at school. Can you help in revamping the education system? That was how we started the entire topic with, the children supposed to know what is global warming.
Yes.
So I think
When I say the education system, the government of India has now given us a new education policy. There are some points which could be beneficial. According to me, a lot of points which can't be, but some are beneficial. My system of education, my policy, in fact, when I say my policy is which I would like to prevail on, is free education for everybody, quality education for everybody, and they shouldn't be carrying books, tons of books in there. They should be hands-free and virtual classrooms, and they should play 5 days a week, compulsory. Yoga should be compulsorily taught from the basic level, compulsorily, and good nutrition. They should be given good food at schools, and this is where and whether you're rich or poor, or cities or towns, everybody should have just one system of education, just one equal system. Like there shouldn't be whether you have a CBSE for people, or ICSE, or matriculation, or a state board, or like that, Samachir, I mean, all these things. Like, so there should be just one system, and education should be free, like what happens in Western world, in Finland or US, Canada, like that.
how do you pay the teachers' salary then?
If I was in power, I could easily do it. Like I have a system to absolutely. It's not a big deal. Like today, you're doing about 40,000 crores, early to 30 to 40,000 crores for your higher as well as education, both the school and higher education. All you need is about 85,000 crores for your budget to give you a good quality free education.
So if not free, at least minimal, because whatever comes free, people don't respect that. So I think some little bit of a fee is not so exorbitant. For a child like LKG, they have to pay such huge amount of money to enroll in a school. This is happening in Chennai.
It's commercialization.
Yeah, we all did that.
I know a school where they LKG, yes, pre-KG they're doing 2 lakhs. LKG they're doing about 3 lakhs.
Exactly.
Second standard, they're charging about 3.5. I don't know what they're going to do to the children. These are all commercialization of education, and absolutely, this is something which shouldn't be done. Like it should be avoided, should be prevented. And see, another thing is about the online classes.
Yeah.
A lot of children have been asked to pay the fees in these so-called elite schools, like.
Yeah.
And why? Because they have paid the fees like 1.5, 2 lakhs. They are forced to do online classes, saying that we have taken fees, so we are giving you education. So that is again a pressure to the children and to the parents that the children has to take on, because they've already paid lakhs of rupees in fees. So that is something. This is a commercialization of education which should be avoided.
I can see that you have a lot of visions, so hoping that you will just come back to power someday. And we'll be so glad for Rotary Club to be part of you, and then we can just merge together and do something fantastic for society and for the environment. Looking forward for you up there.
Thank you.
Someday. We wish you all the very best, sir, from the Rotary fraternity. It was such a pleasure to have you amongst us. I think we have come to the end of this question answer session. And if there are many more questions, I would like to personally message you and take your feedback and then forward it to them.
We'll do that. My questions, and definitely I'll love to answer all these things. And thank you very much for having me in this function program. And Rotary is something where when I was a minister, I've been working very close with Rotary, as well as in fact, lot of functions which I've attended, functions for Rotary, and again kudos to Rotary for eradicating polio from India and mostly from the world, and keep going.
It's always nice to have an educated leader, so it's so nice to have you here with us, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the Rotary clubs for initiating this. Thank you all the 10 presidents for being part of this lovely joint speaker meeting. And we couldn't have asked for a speaker this lovely evening of a Saturday. Dr. Anbamani Ramadas, for you ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you for being there with all of us. And I request our Rotarian to give the vote of thanks, please. So just if you could stay back for the vote of thanks, will be nice. Ganesh Raj from Rotary Club of Metro.
Yeah, thank you, Sujata. First of all, I think thank you so much, Spotlight team, whoever chose this